Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. This is Shirley with Spirit of Matter, and it is Saturn hour, but still, tomorrow Pluto is ingressing to Aquarius, and I hope I will be able to move towards the ingress with you live. We are in the shade of a Mercury retrograde, so we'll see. But that is really, really exciting, fascinating. Yeah, I just fascinating. So I was actually at the beach today, and the entire journey was really beautiful. We stopped for a gas station, and I built half moons in the soil, just random soil. So I combined the half moon structure with the industrial structure. Um, and I kind of let that sink in. The rain is going to come soon, and I ate from my very first half moon structures um, in the city. And that was a very spicy form of rucola leaves or something like that, just naturally grew. And already I noticed two things. One, as I was doing the half moon, there was another form with the trees. There was kind of like a half moon, but inverted, and was putting that sphere that the tiny sphere the children play with that I talked about. And I was like, I made no business out of this. Of course, I turned it over, and I even found some like sweets at the bakery that someone left, so I put it there because that's how I deal with inversions. Okay, it's just like, okay, I'm gonna correct that, form it into a bigger structure that is benefic. So what was special about this was the attempt to invert and belittle me and my work, which of course backfires. And so that could not have been done without satellites. That could not have been done without knowing when I leave, when I come back, just all this surveillance stuff. But the fact is that what just intentionally happened was that at that time I wasn't even thinking, I didn't even know that somebody tried to do that when I was just doing something even more meaningful with these half moons and just enjoying the sea and the marine with all the tiny boats that kind of look like both Israel and Netherlands. Um, and that's right before Pluto's ingress. Okay. So whoever was trying to make my steps smaller only made them bigger and more expansive and more innovative and more integral to everyday society. Whoever tried to flip over, okay, what I do, then I correct that, and I just make it, form it into a bigger structure that is actually benefic. Whoever tried to take what I talk about on social media and try to invert it to do a ritual or whatnot, that really backfires. but but as far as I'm concerned, I'm just going to correct that into a better structure. And I already got to eat the first green leaves of the own soil that I digged up. So eating my greens, okay, having my greens. So I learned a lot about wealth, and I learned a lot about putting my energy in the right places. And essentially, if they put you in a smaller space, you're gonna expand by many little small space. If they put you in a bigger plot of land to isolate you or whatnot, you're gonna build containment. And I think that those who stalk, or they're like they're getting sick of the half moons, like they're gonna have to do something different for themselves. Or, and I literally say that, like, if you invest so much energy in me, and you get continuously frustrated because you're investing the energy either in the wrong place or in the wrong method. So perhaps you want to do something that yields more joy in your life, okay? For example, not restricts people's housing, or because I was the kind of person, like when I went homeless, I was like, okay, I would pay just the amount I pay now for a place that is like, the locations like paradise. Like, there's a lot of problems too, but I was like, if I would be left alone, I would be paying for a bed or something, working on my business, and when it's time, like, to move to a better place. Like, I wasn't the kind of person who was like real estate hungry, okay? But if I can't be left alone, then I have to tend to that. So that to me was just like tending to my problems, and not just tending to the problems of the people in my rank. Was like thinking, okay, why would somebody do that? Let's see what else, and then I got, to the next step, which is the masonry and the curses they place on fertility and all this stuff. So on the one hand, you understand what held back your dreams, okay, and on the other hand, now you tend to that, okay. So that is something that I guess, yeah, we all get and we all tend to. But hey, if somebody wants to become a part of the structure, then rather than to belittle and to invert, perhaps you go and build the half moons, and create containment for yourself, and do something that's actually right for you, okay? Because surely haunting me is not right for you, okay? Okay. And surely trying to bring me to a place. And now Pluto is going to ingress into the 12th house. And I saw a beautiful caricature, not caricature, but a meme about the 12th house. There were a lot of people with the police forces, and then there was this person wearing a fighter, okay, a martial artist, and he was wearing this orange, kind of like orange martial arts suit, and kicking at the masses of police forces. And that was like the 12th house placements. You're being put in a position where you literally have nothing to lose, so no one has the power over you. And I cannot stress that enough, because Pluto is scheduled to enter my 12th house. Okay? And this is very important, because if you feel offended by me, or you feel like, oh my God, that touches on my entire lineage, that touches on my entire lineage, okay? And I touched on that today, the pyramidal structure of my feet that I'm aligning, that touches, that moves things within the lineage and lineage of lineages. And if your lineage was benefiting from my lineage being pyramidal structure, then now the structure is changing from within, and your lineage can adjust. Let's say you're with the Nikes. Okay, so let's do shoes with Nikes that allow the switching of, the widening of the shoes. Let's do correct structure for Nikes. Okay, let's tend to the Neptune karmas, because that essentially what happens. And even I say it so much so that I thought, why am I alive? Okay. So I must be alive to bring something beautiful to the world. And so all these scare tactics, and interference tactics, they actually create something where, okay, now I tend to that, and I build the structure that is relevant to the times, because Pluto is going to ingress into the fixed sign axis. And that means that everything that was set in stone in our society, anything that was fixed, is going to be transformed. Whether it's the talismans, and we begin that with working with a talisman of Medusa Gorgon, not with human sacrifice to the snake goddess, but actually to abolish that human sacrifice. Thank you, finally, people get me. Okay? Actually to abolish that human sacrifice, appealing to the snake goddess, so setting that in stone instead of setting in stone. And that leads to every structure that was set in stone by human sacrifice. I'm not saying it's going to be demolished, but it's definitely going to be rejuvenated from above and below. Okay? So the currency, a lot of the currency And even when Uranus leaves Taurus, Pluto is still progressing along the fixed axis. So from the well water, okay, to the soil, because the well water are both a product of the soil and they generate a healthy soil. And that's what the half moons do, that they reforest the place so we have good well water so we can transform and alchemize before Pluto gets into Pisces. Okay? And whatever was leaders, fathers, okay? Leaders, fathers, their relationships with the Venusian, their relationship with sexuality, everything that was set in stone is going to be transformed. If I think about the estate where I was living at, and that person, that real estate agent, that Mirabelle, okay, he let me live in the building that he built. So that's not to be taken as, that's not to be underestimated either, okay? He lived, like their family lived in that estate. But then there is the lineages of the father-daughter relationship, and I was working also with Emma Mundi on the soul day. I saw that I'm coming to transform the relations between fathers and daughters. Okay, so that was both, creation for me because I have ancestry in North Africa, or coming from North Africa. So you think about Morocco, Libya, Algeria, and all these notions where the Jews were exiled, but you think about the father-daughter relations and how the weddings were, in those situations with younger women, and how Jews were instructed to show basically a sheet with blood on. That's like, if you didn't know better, you didn't know better, but now it's time for us to know better. And that shakes the pyramid from within. Because a lot of the people, I've been living in one of the most orthodox places, actually, that's becoming one of the biggest cities, and this is Gurkha city, and it's like a cult, okay? It's not like a cult, okay? But the thing is, the most people, when you meet them, are very kind, very generous. They respect, whether it's criticism or something like that. They should have never suffered from anything malefic, but the higher up, they make them, okay, they do things that harm the entire society and the entire community. That's the pyramidal structure, okay? And now it's time for all of us people to begin to take the power to our hands, because the power is being delivered to our hands. Now that we saw what went wrong with the pyramidal structure, now it's on us to tend to that, because our leaders and our royalty and our influencers and our actors and everybody that has a face online, even if they weren't already canceled or something, they went through prolonged helplessness that was invisible to our eyes because they were considered the elite. And if there's one thing that we learned from this Pluto ingress and from the previous Pluto ingress to Aquarius, is that the problems of the people become the problems of the royalty, and the problems of the royalty become a problem of the people. So Pluto is going to work on that fixed axis, exposing many things. A lot of things that you're thinking that were poor people's problem, you find out that kings and queens were dealing with that. For example, I'll take the famous "let them eat cakes," okay? Because that's been coming up. And whether that's a true or false, the notion that the queen, when she was told, hey, there is no food, there is no bread, and she's like, okay, then they'll let them eat cakes, could be something that she was doing in her own place. I was like, there's no bread today. Okay, then I'll have a cake. And you think about the cake, you don't think necessarily about the Austrian cake with the fudge and stuff. It's like, a cake is a form of bread. So like, if there's no bread today, then I eat cake. And you did that as royalty. Okay? Just like if you are a rich person and you know you're going to be homeless for a while because you're saving money, you're going to prepare for that homelessness. There's something you can't prepare for, but you're going to prepare for that. Okay? You're going to be doing things differently. You're going to be you're not going to get all caught up in addictions. And so for you, it's like, okay, I'm going to travel for a while and I'm going to see it like that. I'm not going to be holding a state or holding this or holding that. And I can rent my estate and make money in the meantime. And I'm traveling and so on and so forth. So you can get stuck traveling. There's a lot of things that can happen to you as traveling. Also, when I was preparing, when I went homeless, I was trying to think of the traveler mindset and the homeless mindset and trying to get the homeless mindset to the traveler's mindset. And indeed, I saw people that were traveling and got homeless. And so, and the understanding that the structures that travelers need are the structures that homeless people need. So that's kind of like being reiterated. But there's a difference where you are making like channel experiments the way I did, which was even more privileged, is still more privileged than homeless, or when you are homeless, or when you are like a very rich person that is just going homeless for a while, because they're just adjustment. If you think about the way you think, okay, as a person, then your wealth meets you. For example, when I did not have a solution for homelessness in Israel, I was traveling to Netherlands. Okay, and indeed there were the winter shelters, and I was sheltered there. And actually, the problems were more of my Dutch passport than actually my external passport back then. Okay, but it kind of like your wealth meets you. When in the crisis of 2008, when I didn't have like food to eat or stuff like that, I was working, but the money went to like weird debt. Okay, and then I like a person would do begging in the street, and I did that, but I had the wealth of learning how to market and have conversation. And then I saw there's another issue, because there are people that don't get the visibility that I had. I was looking the best. I was looking like a model. And I was taking care at that time. I was really taking care of my skin, of my hair, of all these things, because I wanted to get a more representative job. And then I wasn't homeless, but all my money was going elsewhere, and I was still at work, and I had to like beg for money. So I had the visibility, and sometimes people like did not believe that I need money. I was like, no, I work 2-3 jobs, and I need to help kid for the family and so on. And then what I would get from my money, I was also able to give to people that are like beggars in the street, because they didn't have the visibility, so people would not give them money. Because I had the marketing skills that was both making me stand out as people who think I'm a liar, but also it made me deal with that and still had energy. I did it for 3 weeks before I went bonkers, because that was completely, and I genuinely was working in 3 jobs. But there was this one person that knows how to do the marketing, and then I could give to the people that didn't have, and they had their spot where they were like, they were standing in that spot, or they were standing in that spot. And only later I would learn that these people were basically having to give their money to like people that put them there. So that was something that happened in like 2008. And now, if you think about the cardinal axis, okay, of starting something that builds in. Okay, so for me, it was a wealth of knowledge. It was like a tree of knowledge that bears fruits now, because I have I have solution to so many problems. Okay, it's like a giant tree, but this tree I have solutions for many problems. Um, um, Even on international level, because it just happened. Okay, like that the things I was tending to in the 11th house, which I still don't quite comprehend, but I try to see the omens of what's coming now. It's like I have architectural structures in the soil. So like I have the solutions for many of the fixed axis problems, that now it's time for me to set that in stone, including astrological magic. So there's a lot. There's a reason they say life begins at 40. So there's giant wealth as well. Um, And so Capricorn was the 11th house for me. And so Pluto is going to go through whatever we thought is set in stone and leave no stone unturned when it comes to dealing with the things. And a lot of the things that, a lot of the bridges that we need to make as humanity, I think are going to be done and be made with the following 20 years. Because first of all, you're not going to know who is who. You're not going to know who is who, both in the level of intelligence of like somebody speaks and you don't know if it's them or their clone. But also on the level that whether you are, let's say you're refugees, okay? You really don't know who is who. You don't know who came from where. And I think about when I was homeless in Netherlands and I was seeing this article about the crime journalist that was assassinated. And I see immediately something with the police. And because I was doing channeling experiment, then I was trying to channel this person. Why Israel, crime journalist, is that person that has a small column in the papers. And we know that person, okay? In Netherlands, where they have lot of fortune in 22-degree Virgo, okay, that is completely different. And I didn't know, but I was channeling the person who was one of the most famous people in the entire country. A controversial character, did a lot of here, a lot of there, of course, MK33. And I had no idea who he was. and the first answers that I would guess, like, this country is North Korea, and I was like, what is he talking about? People sell their kidneys to get a Dutch passport, and then showing off the structure, and then taking photos of the kids, which only a couple of years later I would see an interview about Peter taking a photo of Hollandier, and I'm like, that brings me back to the I know, and it's kind of like, and I still don't know if it was like interference in channeling that was giving correct information and so on. But you see, about you really don't know who is who. Like, you're channeling someone and you have no idea who they are. Okay? And then with the years, you come into a more and more understanding of what that very likely very fated chart encounter was. and that all happened with Saturn was in my 12th house, okay? So I had no idea who is who. People really have no idea. For that, I came to university with this Jungblood name. I was not Mason. I still don't know what it means to the people that look for the bloodlines and stuff like that. Oh my God. So generally, like, you have no idea. You come to and there's something very exciting about this as well, because you have a conversation of person to person. Okay, I don't know, Peter always had conversation with people on personal level, but in essence, it's kind of like you don't know who you're talking with, and that's just that. Okay, or I had even when I became, more equipped with knowledge, let's say, then people try to talk to me about like medical stuff, thinking I'm a peasant, and there's nothing wrong with being a peasant. They know more about medicine, medicine than we do. Okay, but they wouldn't think that it would backfire with me portraying the core of the epistemic problems in the medical field per se, and kind of like, hey, who's attacking you with that? Yeah, the person that took a break from academia because because they actually had an idea. Okay, so this is where you really don't, like, in those situations, whether it's the 12th house or whether it's the refugee cases or whether it's whatnot, you really don't know who is who. Okay, or what is what, and then each person has their own problem and own thing that's popping up, and that can create for new generation of wealth, but also really anything that was set in stone. Anything that was set in stone for you is going to be changing. both in the world and in structures and architecture, and in leadership and royal families, wealth structure, currencies, the way beauty standards. Like, think about all the things we said about when Uranus went into Taurus about the fixed axis. It's not just Taurus, because you can't talk to your vagina. Okay. I'm not joking. You talk to your vagina and there's MK Ultra in the way. Like, we have a private conversation here. And then there is the philosophy of things. Okay. Um, that's what happened in Taurus. Okay. Uranus went from Aries to Taurus, and it went from me to let's talk to our vaginas and see what sex we do want. Okay. And I was like, and then the presuppositions, they changed from the core. It's like, don't you talk to your penis? Because men were taught that their penis is, that to listen to their penis is something wrong. But then what you understand, that if you're attuned to your sexuality and you're open-hearted and so on, then you would get, the direction will fall off when the other person is not there. And but like I said, an erection doesn't mean that the other person is there. But if it falls off, sometimes because you're attuned. Okay. Then the presuppositions change from the core, and what we thought as like, oh, sexuality is wrong, as this, as that, as that, as that. It's kind of like, hey, what you thought was erectile dysfunction was actually your penis functioning correctly. It's creating connection. It's establishing connection. Again, what you did through mind control and stuff like that, that shit doesn't work. And then the same things that used to work, let's say with women, now they backfire, and very malefically. Okay, people give you the word when you do that. Whereas the things that never worked with women because they were all programmed now begin to finally work, because it's like, hey, that, okay, women reconnect with themselves, so they're looking for someone who's like, whether it's emotional provider or provides containment, or even when it comes to like financial, is able to understands wealth, okay, understands wealth, just like understands generosity, not just to his woman, but also to his business and so on, and that wealth generates wealth, and tends to the issues with wealth, okay, tends to the somebody can make you grow more benefic. Whereas the JP Morgan toothpaste generation was like, hey, if you can make more money, make more schemes, make more this, make more that, women are gonna love you, because they were programmed in a certain way, and that was set in stone, and that's what you dated, okay, so and that's how your household looked, and then nobody was happy. So there are a lot of these things happening. um and because this is a fixed axis, and Pluto works through 20 years, Uranus has been working for like 7-8 years tops. Uranus will work for 2 decades, because to tend to the fixed axis, it is 2 decades. It is 2 decades. And with the fixed axis, we usually correct, like with the fixed axis, it's like you're not going to move a place, you're going to correct the wrongs. Okay, if I take the Nike's example, so when Nike's faced with the issue about like slavery and stuff like that, that was in all companies, then they had to tend to that. It wasn't about like taking Nike's down. It's like, hey, we're abolishing slavery now. Also, Nike's has to do that. And now when they try to do whatever with the digital drama, I don't know what's going on with Nike's, but I think integrating the removing the, like, widening the gap between the toes, okay, to remove for the pyramidal structure, but at the same time abolish sexpionage. Not it's not, and again, the problem is not that like the sex work is bad. Like, it was never sex work to begin with. And now that the Taurus reconnected us with like tantric orgasm, and the fact that, hey, we need to tend to the soil, we need to tend to the trees, we need to tend, like we talk about organic, something organic, we need to tend to that. And a blood flow, think about the penis, okay, the blood flow to the penis, with the structure of your toes affects the blood flow. So Nikes can definitely get into that and correct that and withstand that, because all the drama of like 2030, yes, 2030, well, first of all, it's the mutable axis. It's good to prepare the ground for like Pluto in the mutable axis. But the 2030 drama and the one world religion and all these like humanity enslavement stuff, that's not, and even the people that were on it, they were the expandable children that they didn't manage to kill and they had to be on it. Now they're like supposed to be replaced with like the transhumanism, okay? So this is a very opportune time where like people climb to the top of the mountain and they see what the top of the mountain is. I was actually at the beach today, okay? So um so that's something that we very likely are going to see, like collapse of banks and stuff like that, and we're going to have a lot of situations where we don't know who is who, and everybody having their own wealth meets them, okay, your wealth meets you, because the thing that you had to give in your society was just common. In another society, that might be actually very useful. And there are going to be attempts to make it the other way around. Okay, for example, when Russian people came to Israel, they didn't know the language. A lot of them were doctors. They had lawyers. They had a lot of education. In Israel, they were forced to do like daytime jobs. Okay, which they were doing, and they were prospering still, and forming businesses still. And then they were accused of bringing sex espionage to Israel. It was like, no, that's not at all the case, and never have been the case. And whatever we learned about USSR espionage was like, no, a father sent his daughter to a royal academy, army, royal military academy of maybe intelligence to do something good for the nation, as he did something good for the nation, so he thought, and that woman was raped until she had to make a person fall in love with her so that only he will be her rapist. And then the father thinks his daughter became a whore. She did not become a whore, she was raped. That's Eliza that still does not talk to her father today. Did it help the USSR to do sex espionage? No, the USSR fell. The USSR fell. Okay? And that's something not only Putin will have to take into account, but any nation of any country of any place. But in the generation, like in my generation, when I looked at willing consent, and yes, I was tortured and I was assaulted and so on, and then there was like, and it works in the astral and so on. I talked about it for a while. But because I held on to the willing consent, and I would meet Peter as after he died as to tend to political assassination prevention, which is same for women who leave violent home, for politician, for influencer, for people who went out of MK espionage, for whistleblowers, and not as a person who would be sex espionage to, I don't know, have an affair with him and then slaughter him whenever the agenda sees fit. Because that was very likely the assignment. When I was finishing my first degree, there was actually a ritual that was put in. So I would put the name of someone that, and I just did it because I didn't think much. It was like, it's intuition. And that was, you put names in a plate in the freezer with water, and then it freezes. And then when I moved, it was a deep freeze. And indeed, that person would introduce me to Peter de Vries. So they were putting that, they were trying to go with the name, and the name was important here because it's my Mars 22 retrograde, in Scorpio, and he has Sun 22 Scorpio, so the bloodline matters. But because I insisted on willing consent and I was not recruited, and I turned to this Ido's wife and said, this guy tried to recruit me to something, to do like, then I thought sex work, but I didn't understand anything. And I thought it was not like the sexual harassment, or so, like there's like this mind control thingy. And I wrote a satire about the cult, and I didn't agree to sue him or to litigate him, because it's like there's an interweb of things. And my insistence on willing consent, okay, it didn't save Peter's life because somebody else assassinated him eventually, but that person was not me. Because I insisted on willing consent, okay? Now you think about, and that's Uranus in Taurus. Okay, Uranus was in Aries back then. When I walked out, I said I want out, and that was the cardinal axis, the starting something axis, but it was squaring Pluto, okay? And as I walked out, I was already like, I'd already dealt with that, so I'm like, hey, if I want to work, I want to work. I don't look like, if I want sex, I want sex. If I want work, I want work, not together. Okay? And if I have sexual expression, let's say with my artwork or something like that, it should be respectful to me, to my boundaries. And so that was something that later moved into the set in stone. Okay? Because also my psychologist would try to get, and there was even attempted to get at my Dutch passport, or like to do stuff like really weird things, or to get me to change my name. And I'm like, no, the name is Jungbloed. My mother was married to a Jungbloed. She didn't change the name back. I'm working with this name as a part of my heritage. My father acknowledged me when I was 16 because he had to acknowledge me in order for me to get the passport. And that's it. Like, what's the problem, okay? It's not about disowning the lineage. It's about if there's a problem with the lineage that needs to be tended to, then tending to that. If it's the cults or something like that. And we have actually a Jungbloed that is married to the Fries. But it's like a tribe. It's like Levi and Cohen, I learned, which I didn't even know until I was in Netherlands, okay? There's a funny thing, because a lot of Jungbloods live in a place called Haarlem, which I haven't been in actually. And at first they wanted me to be in a shelter in that Haarlem place, but I missed the station and I found myself in Amsterdam in the street. Okay, but the thing is that, yeah, I just pay attention to everything that's coming up right now as Pluto is about to ingress. And I didn't know a lot of Jungbloods live there. Okay, and in Netherlands, Haarlem is the wealth of the wealth. Okay, where I think about when my father was traveling with my mama, they drove in New York. Okay, and they very likely he went to Haarlem. Okay, because it was a village of only black people, and people were looking at him funny. He didn't understand it at all, because and two white folks, him and my mom, okay, she was looking like a movie actress, and him no less good, okay, and they were like just two white folks wandered in a car. It's like everybody's looking at them differently, and for him it's like nothing unusual. Person is white, person is black. He came from Netherlands, right? And I'm just thinking Haarlem, okay, but they were from North Amsterdam. So, and when I was homeless, and I was traveling one day to North Amsterdam, and I saw all the tiny, now in Netherlands, the wealth is tiny. All the houses, they are tiny. If you got a BMW, you're wealthy, okay? And that's the thing. So you got, it's not like a mega yacht, or like you got a yacht. That's it, okay? I wasn't in Rotterdam or all these places, but it's kind of like, so you got a yacht, and you live in North Amsterdam, and that's considered wealthy. That's where the rich people, the rich folks live, but it doesn't look like it's wealth, but it's a different type of wealth, because It's the simple life. So, and it was winter, and there was this guy. I was like, "Oh, you're walking outside, and so it's cold." I was like, "Yeah, it's cold, but I like to see the place because it's important to walk outside." And all these things that are like, if you're wearing good clothes, and I had to steal two gloves because it's only my hands that weren't covered, so I had to steal two gloves. Um, and then I was walking and in the field and so on, and I was very happy that I get to walk outside and yeah, and just yeah, just those experiences that come back right now. Um, so yeah, I guess so. Just coming back to how things were arranged in a way that was even hidden to me, because Pluto is also hidden. Okay, what is hidden, and it exposes little by little. And Saturn is lineage, and Saturn in Scorpio. But to say that I've processed the entire, like we have one more day with Pluto in Capricorn, to say that I've processed my entire lineage, no, I will probably run into it with Pluto in the next sign. So yeah, there are going to be a lot of people in a lot of places, and refugees and crises and banks falling and whatnot. Um, and you don't know who is who, but there's another thing that comes to that, just like your wealth meets you, because that's the hidden wealth. For example, I didn't until I didn't travel homeless in Netherlands, I wasn't seeing all these beautiful places, um, kind of like in my own terms. It's not in my own terms because I was homeless, but it was like it's just these things that it took me some 3 years after I came back because I was homeless to recover from that trauma. But as I was recovering, things began to like be formed. Um, and I guess there was a lot that was trying to stand in the way for me to not see that, to not this, to not that, to not that. But that's just the tells of a person, okay? Very likely I was meant to see that. Very likely I was meant to, tend to things. And yeah, I remember before Pluto went into that, sign, then I was in university and there was one of the family of Mirabilis, if you know, okay? Now they was studying filmmaking with me. And he was into me or something. And but my problem was that he was too controlling. As far as he was concerned, he was like, I want you to study mathematics and so on, and you need to go there, and I can fund your degree and so on. And it's like, if he wasn't so controlling, I would go for it. Like I would say, why not? Okay, if a person finds this important value, then I would go and study mathematics, even though I get mixed with the small numbers. Um, but most of mathematics is actually not about numbers; it's about expression. So who knows? But my problem was that he was controlling, and the thing is that people are like, the mirabilis person is like, and I'm like, okay, but he's too controlling. And that pertains to the chain of wealth and how we have good intimate relations in wealth, because that was very likely harming us both. Okay. The first time that he said he has like feelings for me, I thought he was laughing at me. But if a person is controlling towards you and wants to mold you into, a person, that was something that they're used to as love expression. Or if in academic circumstances, like they were humiliating and belittling each other, and I'm like, no, I don't like that. It hurts my sexuality. That hurts my well-being. I don't like that. I don't like these, weird stunts that they have to do. And these are the courses of the cult that they have to do to each other. And I'm like, well, that needs to change. Okay. Because they would really do weird shit to each other. I don't know if they teach them like that because of business, or it's kind of like, hey, you're gonna have to transfer wealth, so you need to see all the crazy things that could be done to you. It's like, but this is it's incredible torture. It's basically not wealth culture, but they control the entire earth. And everybody suffers. But I was thinking about, like the Bedouin culture and the fact that they have this arranged marriage culture, and it's like within the highest wealth, it is also that way. And I was thinking like, no, we need to have, like, because the emotions of love, if a person is growing wealthy, then in good upbringing, they're not bad. It means it's like, let's say they fall out of the tribe or they fall out of the culture, then they come to bring something from there. Like there's a reason that these things happen. But I have to tell you, there are so many things that are like arranged marriages that are trying to implant omens into one another, and it's like sometimes it works for the people, sometimes like if they don't want it, they don't want it. Like, why would anybody be forced to be with anybody? And also the relations. Okay, it's kind of like the wealth and control stuff. So like things would have to change. Is what I'm saying. So I guess now the band-aid of like the government is going to be taken off. And as a person whose entire income was reliant on that, I definitely learned a lot about wealth and moving wealth around and so on, and moving soil around and so on. And now I guess I will have to implement that in a way that's actually benefic. And I'm like, yeah, if the MK Ultra, if I go back to what Rebecca told me, she was like sexually harassing me, and then she was saying, I pick my battles and so on. And I'm like, well, the most important battle is the children. Okay, that the most important is the upbringings, the fertility, is those curses that are laid upon us, and that's the most important battle. So you pick your battles, but you pick the most important one, and you begin to tend to it in the best way you know. And that's something that to me is kind of like, it's kind of like something that was built in me at the same time when I was introduced to Peter's work. Because if I take a look at that, it's like the biggest battle matters. And that's to me, I know that there was controversial character. What I saw, that was a person that spoke against WHO, and whichever are the circumstances, the biggest battle matters, because anyway you're gonna have to fight the biggest battle. Okay, anyway you're gonna have to tend to that. And so if you take the biggest battle, and you say, I'm going to tend to that, then you are already on you are in your lane. You understand me? You're in your lane, and nobody can confuse you with stay in your lane, go off your lane, this is the lane, this culture, that culture. Nobody can confuse you, because if you understand what the biggest battle is in the situation, and you tend to that, then you begin to be able to confront that, and the big battle becomes a small battle. Okay? So, because then all things join, and you begin to see things, and you're not too, like all the scare tactics that they use on people, you're not too scared of them. Because essentially, if you think about the lower rank of the pyramid and the top of the pyramid, here I am talking to you with my toes correctors. Okay? And the toe correctors are basically to get the space between my toe aligned the way it would be if I was a peasant. But not to do peasant the way we did industrial society. So there's a sort of rejuvenation from the entire pyramid. And I speak as a person that was never afraid of work, but was not able to do the work because it was not work. You understand me? When I tended to do these half moons, even if it's a minimal shape, it doesn't look anything big, okay? And already the growing greens that I took and, washed and ate, they were very, they were this mustard green, so just very intense, okay? But it's very healthy as well. There in the city where at night we have a woman that is, I gave her a talisman. She's a working prostitute, okay? So, yeah, you put me in those places, that's what will be there. Where is the soil here? Okay, so, and that's the thing, okay? And immediately I get, okay, kind of like I'm not saying the reward, but it's kind of like it yields. So of course I'm motivated to do something that yields. If I think about, sex work, people, I think men don't know that one of the favorite activity of women is actually to give them blowjobs. But the thing is, they keep having blockades because they fantasize on being a maniac or being like they fantasize on the things that get women discouraged from going down there. And I think it's the same for women. Women have no idea how much men love to go down on a woman. Okay? But they keep squishing these men out. Like, you don't let a man have space. And you're not to blame for that because you need to have your own space and so on. But if you don't let a man be, then then he can't be themselves around you. Then he doesn't get to connect with themselves. Then it doesn't come up. Okay. But like 99% of the reason people would go to like sex work or whatnot, other than that sex espionage things, like they're like people would be eager to do that had you been connected with yourself rather than having preconceived notion that you're fucking someone over when you do that. Because then the body of the woman just like contracts. She becomes doesn't even have fluids in her. She can't. Whereas if you genuinely love it and not grooming and not lover boy and not trying to abuse and manipulate, that comes naturally. Same with same sex, okay? If you're having men and men, women and women, it doesn't matter. If you come from a place of genuine love and respect, then that's what you'll meet. If not, then the question is, okay, how do I, how do I correct my stance? How do I connect to a place of like whether it's self-love or like, hey, if I don't actually like the person or if I don't feel good with the person or stuff like that, that is the thing that we need to pay attention to, because what people think is sex work is actually sex espionage, and that is incredible torture that's disdain to make a person do things that they wouldn't normally do and then take the information, okay? And then that information is being cashed in by handlers. So the person would feel abused by the sex worker, and then the sex worker has a handler, and then the person that went to the sex worker, that was a sex espionage, and they are mind controlled, so they would get that person even to hurt. Okay, it's not that the person at the sex worker is mind controlled both ways. And now it's filmed. You understand, when you go to these places, it's all filmed. Okay. And there are many like, and that's the thing. It's like it's not even, yeah, it's not even sex work. And then that person would be programmed to have like estates. They was like, oh, take your money, have a state, because they write a state on the name of the sex worker. Okay, now these estates are all hotels where she trains other sex workers. And it's like, oh, I did something lovely with being a sex worker. I contributed to the real estate and so on. It's like, yeah, okay, but that's espionage. And then it's like it's continuous. And what the people that come there, they will also, that this will also done to them. Okay, that I know that because when they did it on the astral, they began to work on the astral. I don't know when and how, but they began to work in the astral, and then it would torture you, torture you, torture you, and then it would be love bombed. Okay, so you run into a situation then that other party is trying to groom you, because that's the coping mechanism. Okay, they're trying to get you over to their side. And I'm just setting on willing consent. Okay, or they try to say, oh, you don't have respect. It's like, you came to me. Don't talk to me about respect. I don't even know you. You came to me. Don't talk to me about respect. You respect my boundaries. Okay, then it's like, okay, that that shit backfired on an international level. So, and I didn't get it. I was like, are you trying to have a secret affair with a whistleblower? Like, literally, what the fuck? But that's the thing, okay? Because when you have encounters like that, you begin to read each other's minds, and then you have information. And because when you have trauma, you get dissociated from the body, then you have the extra senses. Okay, it's not a healthy way to get to your extra senses, but it's like you can. Sometimes I couldn't watch a video without hearing the person speaks. Now I don't know if this information is correct or not correct, but that was the case, and they tried to like switch information from here to there, and I'm like, let's tend to political assassination prevention. That's more useful, but then we have to tend to the children. And so it's like I can't like do anything. My magic would not work in your favor if taking you out of, let's say, the safety house or place like that would just mean you're going to rape more children because you have to do it for the agenda. Okay, then my magic won't work. Like it won't let me, and very very well so, because that's not what should be. But then if I tend to the expandable children. So you see, just the value of the notion of willing consent, the changes to the understanding these things and understanding the way like people can recover from sexual boundary violation, changes the entire world of espionage. Because now it's like, oh, wait, sex work is like sexpionage? And sexpionage is not even espionage, because everything is broken, and they would torture you to forget things. And then the person that you're supposed to be talking with, they already know that they're like that something like that could come at them. So for them, they try to recruit you over to their place, and they try to do loverboy to you as well. I think this is how the half moons began in the soil, because I was working in the soil. And then you build something constructive together rather than, disruptive. And then they got to my muckler, trying to take over my property. It's like, it's not my property, it's the muckler. So try to get to the muckler. And I'm like, okay, fuck it. Because and it's like, and the thing is, nobody, and I was like, I never consented. I do not consent. I'm not tied into that thing. I do not consent to be whatever the spy did. I never consented. I don't want that. Okay? It's not good, because it's not like even somebody shares some idea or agenda, and like, why you're doing that or something like that. Or they try to do that with Peter. It's like, yeah, Peter was, oh, this person, yeah, you're a Dutch, this person was a person who tends to crime and solve crimes, and then he moved to the other side. And then they were trying to recruit me to move to the other side with them. So I don't know what they wanted, like to sit to set him up or something. Okay? But I was like, no, I'm not. Because they thought I was trying to, somebody maybe brainwashed them that I'm a gold digger. And I'm like, no. I just try to live my life. Okay? So somebody tells somebody something, I have no idea who are that somebody's. Then I was actually being told, Peter knew you. And I'm like, I have no idea. And that could be a lie for all I'm concerned. How would he know me? I'm in Israel. He's in the Netherlands. Like, how would he know me? That would be really strange if he did. Okay? But that's exactly how these things work. They try to wrap up if they take two people, they try to wrap up each other's minds around each other and then create something, whether it's love or not. So they would convince you that the other person's like, they're waiting for you to do that, and it's like, they don't know me. Okay, what's going on? But they try to create interactions and control interactions. And I guess that's just like a role of social engineers to do that. And it's all very strange. And then one person tells you, that person can't stand you. It's like, come on, you that person, they like you. They're like, I have no idea what's going on. Maybe they just want information on that person, okay? So I'm like, I never consented to that. I do not consent to that. And then looking at Eliza, okay, of course, her father sent her to a Royal Academy for like intelligence and stuff, but he didn't know what it entails, and then he thought his daughter was a whore. And of course, it's true to men as well. What do you think? All these hermaphrodites, they sleep with each other, right? I'm not gonna point to that. I'm not gonna point to that. I'm not gonna point to that. Oh my God. And those things are just weird. Like, you definitely get to meet fascinating people, okay? You definitely get to meet people you didn't think you would meet. And even if that's not meeting like in the physical, but it's like, hey, that's energy and that's energy and that's energy and so on. So you look at that chart and so on. But I just think that there's so many things need to change. So many things need to change. And they're about to. If I think what has changed since Pluto was in Capricorn, I'm basically at the place that I was when Pluto ingressed into Capricorn. Not really. But then we kind of like, we moved here, and then I moved out of the house to study. Yeah, there's just a lot to think about. Since 2008. Just so much to think about. Definitely karma for the makler, for the real estate agent. I have no idea what karma, but it'll fix that, I hope. I hope. Let's say for the lineage, I don't know. By the way, the name of the business was on his wife, Shelley, Tivuch Shelley, okay, makler Shelley. And the funny thing, I learned that they try to get you to marry a person. Because for me, the ruler of the 4th and 7th is in the 2nd. So they try to, through marriage, to get to my non-existent assets. Like, but it's like, if it's my skills or my this or my that, it has to be used in favor of humanity. Just like when they train people in the CIA to do like the ESP stuff, then people got blocked because, first of all, it's a sense. You can't train it like you train other skills. It's a sense. So you can't test for it like scientifically, the way usually you do. And then they began to be afraid of the church and persecution. And then if you don't use it benefically, you need to watch Gigi Young. She had an interview with someone a while back. And then if you don't watch, like if you don't use it benefically, it's going to be stopped. Okay? Then you have to use it benefically. That's the thing. And also to reach that not from trauma, which is very important. This is why sexpionage fails. This is why the USSR failed, basically. Simply put. You don't rape your way to extrasensory. Okay? You tantric your way to extrasensory. And even when people try to fumble with the tantrics, like my psychologist did, it backfired. What would happen? Let's say we would be in a certain situation, and I breathe deeply within. Now he tries to get into my breath. I breathe deeply within. If your breath is aligned with my breath, and our souls are right now connected, that is you breathing deep within. And if you're not ready to have the deep in breath, it's going to purge out things that are stuck in your body. So then he begins to be like extremely violent to me and very, very angry because he lost control, because he thought to control my breath. And I was like, I just breathe deeply. And if you put your breath to try to control my breath, I'm going to breathe deeply down. Now that's controlling your breath is literally now. And then he would feel disempowered, but I never intended that. I was just breathing. So there's an issue of entanglement, of soul entanglement, and I don't know too much about that. That you need maybe to disentangle. Again, whenever you connect with a person, never do that with the intention to control. Okay? Never do that with intention to control. Never do that with intention to get to what they have. For example, I used to have the ruler of the rulers of the rulers for me, like all the love stuff, except for the 5th house, is the 9th house. So I have a Pluto there. So I would fall naturally in love with people that have something to teach me. So let's say it was be a new faculty of knowledge or something like that. But it wasn't like I was taking what's theirs. It's like, hey, that person, let's say, I don't know, is bridging between academic knowledge to applied science. Okay? So I would begin to read their work and stuff like that. I would be inspired and so on. And then I would learn to do this for myself. So it's not about taking from another person. It's the natural process of inspiration and growth. Okay? But if you're like trying to get into the soul of a person in order to get what is theirs rather than to do it as yours, then first of all, I have news for you. You don't need to, because if you're like, let's say you fell in love with me, or you got sexually attracted to me, or you like something about me, of what I do, of what my soul essence and something like that, and you want from that, then it's very likely that this is already existing in your soul. Okay, you don't need to take anything from me. It's already existing in your soul. And particularly, I remember, like, you just didn't recognize that it exists in your soul. And you try to take it from me, but it's like, no, you don't have to take it from me. It's very likely existing deep within your soul. You can watch what I do, but you don't need to make all kinds of ritual to siphon on my energy, on my life patterns. You don't need that. Because very likely if you crave that, it's because it's already in you and you need to develop that. You can watch what I do and begin to do for yourself. That's good, that's inspiration. But you really don't have, you don't even need to feel like you have to take anything from anyone, because that you already have it within you. And I saw that even with people that I knew, let's say the outer planets of their chart, let's say they have a Pluto oppositing my sun. Okay, this entire generation, with a couple of years of Pluto oppositing my sun. And so this means with evolutionary astrology that this generation is evolving to my sun. Now my sun is on the decan of will and consent. Okay, good success, so good balance between work and rest, genuinely being successful, shining as you are, the voice, expression, And so you would see some of these people would try to kind of take what I have, a problem with it, and so on. And son is also the father, so you get that. So essentially, it's kind of like, hey, you don't have like you don't have to try and get what's mine because you're already evolving there. It's you are meant to be that. You are meant to shine in this way, and it can feel like jealousy in the beginning. Okay, I remember when I was jealous, then there was a fitness athletic girl, and she was very short. But she did this fitness and athletic, and everybody was watching her, and I was very jealous. So what I did, I went to the side, okay, and I began to work on my athletics. And I was like, I might not be like her, but then I began to have the inner strength of my own athletics and feeling good in the body and so on, and began to reach that type of flow. Was like I was meant to shine in that way. I look like a Gulliver next to her, but it was the understanding that jealousy is a dynamo thing, not to try to get what they have or to try to belittle them, but the dynamo thing that to work on that thing in you that you came here to evolve to and you came here to develop. And that can be experienced as jealousy in the beginning, but when you begin to tend to that, you're no longer jealous because we're usually not jealous of what we can't have. We're usually jealous of what we're meant to evolve into. Okay? And that is, it's like you're meant to shine in that way, and then you see it in another person. It's like, I can't stand that. Okay? Or you immediately think of how that could be done better, that could be done better, that could be done. Okay, do it. And so for more, this is going to like, because I naturally knew this when I was jealous and I was 9 years old or something like that. I was jealous in this athletic girl, and I naturally knew that, and I naturally began to work with jealousy in that way. Like if I was ever jealous in something, it was like, what am I being jealous of? How do I evolve it in myself? Even if it's like a distinct type of beauty or something, like you will notice it's hardly ever just the external features. You see the same person, man or woman, okay, when they are shining and happy and loved and appreciated and so on and so forth, they glow in a certain way, and the same person, same features, not glowing when it's not like that. Okay, now some of the courses would be what we would call narcissistic abuse. So perhaps some of the course, maybe there is a course on you with your lineage to be, a player or this or that. You can negate for this course because you can, and that would really improve upon, your problems and issues. Um, you don't have to be like this player figure. You get the upright version of what was meant to be inverted in you. And I have done this on myself. Okay, if I think about, I could easily be this borderline person, that blah blah blah, this hysterical person, this that, and I learned how to invert it. Okay, within myself, to like to invert the discourse, and to look for the upright information about everything. Okay, and to practice what the upright version, okay, of everything. So even when they try to make me sex espionage or sex assassin or something like that, I know it sounds so erotic, it's not. um, and so I inverted that to tend into political assassination prevention. And when somebody tries to invert it back, I just invert it and create a bigger space that is for the upright. So even what people say about, let's say, reptilians, or like, hey, those people are soulless and they can't create, they always need to invert things. I don't know, like they can tend to their upbringing and learn to create, even if it's by imitation. So they would create that, and at first it would be soulless, then it would hold water, and then the soul is retrieved. Okay, so that's another thing that, I've learned kind of like along the years. Um, yeah. Especially, I wouldn't recommend, like, there are the people that think that other people are stupid. I wouldn't recommend that. Okay. It's one of the curses of the Masons, I think. Like, it's just like, oh, we're intelligent, they are dumb, they are this, they are that. Okay, a person can do stupid things, but that usually means how this. I don't remember who said that an expert on a topic is somebody who made the vast amount of mistakes on a very particular topic. Okay, and so that's pretty much kind of like, that's the training stuff. Um, and that's how you come to know something. First, you know nothing about that thing, and then you come to know something. And I go back to Feynman talking about his sister, and his sister became astrophysicist. Yes, um, when it was not so custom for women to go to college and university, and for him it was like he was reading a certain book, and his sister got interested in that. She was like, read the book, and then she was like, but that's tough. It was like, read it again and again until you get it. That's what I did. Okay. And he had a Mercury in Taurus. Okay, so Mercury in Taurus is the slow and steady wins the race. And I was like, you read it again, then you read it again, then you read it again. Okay, the first text that I ran into in Dutch in my later years, okay, after I did the courses, which is like what they teach in the courses, two texts. One was the letter that Geert Wilders, lawyer representative of Geert Wilders, sends to this Timmerman, I call him the 2030, okay, but they're all 2030. But the thing is, like, since after he got the assassination threat, okay, that T person said we need to, and that T person was born 6 May, which is my birthday. It's like, that's not fair. We cannot share a birthday. You have to change your birthday. But it's like threatening. He said we must kill these Wilders and every means necessary. Okay, and that letter that the lawyer office sends to warn this T person. So that in Dutch. And the other thing was Misdaad Verslaggever. Okay, that was, I think, particularly the Cassandra episode from 2007 by by Peder Oude Vries. And I was like, I hardly read anything in Dutch, but what the things that I read is a legal document and a cold case crime solution in Dutch. Okay, now that makes sense because the ruler of my Mercury is this Mars 22nd degree retrograde in the 9th, so that would be political assassination prevention and juristic papers, and that would be a cold case, okay, of someone who had significant power, even on the international scene, like Peder Oude Vries. And Netherlands is part of my home case, is my fatherland, so the Chiron I have is there, so it's more challenging to speak the language, but when I read that language, then those are the documents that I read. But what I have to say around this is that, you read it until you understand it. Okay, don't be afraid to watch another language. You read it until you understand it. So, how did I learn my German? How did I learn my English? But English is, I like the X-Files and so on. So there's a lot of English all around. But how did I learn, let's say, my German? I took a book and I began to read it. And I didn't understand what I was reading, but I kept on reading it. So when people would speak the language, I would already get accustomed to the language. And you open a lecture and you listen and you study what you like. Don't waste your time on these things that will get you demotivated. Okay, just get used to having the whole picture and not understanding every detail, and then slowly filling out the details. It's also how I would teach language, and this is why my students would always prosper, because That's, if you learn a language that way, it's called immersion. If you learn a language that way, then your accent can change, your this can change, your that can change, okay? You're not here to be espionage, you're here to communicate with people. And on that level, even when you don't speak, correct accent, and my accent changes all the time, you notice if you watch my channel. But then you're being understood way faster than you think you are. And language is also symbolic. Okay, so don't be afraid of like trying to understand symbols of what they mean and where they're taken in various cultures and so on. And that's another thing that I was, I guess, building. Yes, I mean, what more has Pluto done in Capricorn? Just a lot of, whichever is your Capricorn house, you are standing at the top of the mountain right now. Okay, let's say it's your 7th. For you, that may have been that sacred cults and covenants have been getting in the way of your intimate relations, both partners and enemies. And you have learned, and Pluto tends to go to extremes, so I went from being completely socially isolated to more well known than I had expected to be, to conversing, like having influence on people that I didn't think I would have. Okay. Yeah. And by the way, that all began from being completely isolated. So I remember when it was just beginning, then I was trying to have good experiences with people in a social group, a forum that was of university. And that, I guess, was not the best place to find people, but I did not know it, but I did not know where to find people, okay? So I wasn't in any of the places that you find people. And that would end up something that my psychologist, I guess, would be associated with, which would eventually backfire for him, yet again. Like if that was the guy behind the keyboard who wished on me mass rape, specifically by niggers. Like he said the word. Okay, I'm not gonna say his name right now because I'm afraid that these niggers are gonna get at him. And that's not the desired effect. The desire is to abolish rape altogether. Simply because I talk of something that was MK Ultra, I said the word soul rape, and actually, that was the closest that I could get, because this was sexual assault. So much so that I would get dissociated, and then you bifurcate between euphoric feeling and dissociating from your body. And entanglement, okay, and I didn't know how to sort this, so I called it soul rape, and I tried to find what works for people who were raped to recover, only to learn that there weren't any models, and I would have to be of the people who come up with these models, and then they actually worked for people, and that they actually threatened people who were in the satanic cult of supposedly astrologers who decide which children are kidnapped for the welfare. If I go back to the song of Tupac, I see no changes, then I would be the person that would pay the note of how they take these children, okay, that were usually from marginalized society, whether it's Moroccan society, whether it's black people, whether it's okay, but this is also down to the elite. Okay, so I must just let's keep it okay together, and then they would decide of which child to kidnap, and then they would turn them into sexpionages, and then the traditional father. Okay, the traditional father thinks, oh, they took this person, they became a whore, or they became, maybe they did that to Elon, because Elon say, I had a son and I lost the son. No, you have a daughter. Okay, whatever, son, daughter, they, whatever, you didn't lose your child, but maybe somebody took your child from you and did those things to your child, and you don't want to disown for your child. Okay, because it's obvious that he's connected to that child, and now they did it to Elon. Okay, so and then they would take the natural, or the father or the person, that they would begin to disown of their children, and that's how they get at you, because there's like, oh, a woman that respects herself doesn't do so and so, and then you get the person to do so and so because you rape them and they become espionage, and then the family disowns the children. So they play at the values. And then the men become like what Tupac says, I'm a thug because I came from the gutter and I'm still alive. Because they had to force him to be this player. Then later they have to force them to be the lover boys. Like if they go to Netherlands, so they put it on the Arabs. It's not Arabs. But they give them that role. And then there's a psychologist. When I talk about yin and yang, it's like, but isn't that like, what is it called, sexist, or, I have no idea, okay? There's yin and there's yang. And there's a balance between them, regardless of what your gender is. The sky does not polishes the land, or else it loses the mandate of the heaven. You see that with eclipses, you see that with China, you see that with we the people. And never, a father that punishes his daughter, he loses mandate of the heaven. USSR fell because of that. So that was where I was. I was just trying to have, and the whole idea was like, hey, there was this man who was hurting me, and then I was told that I have to make his life crazy because then he will stop. Really? Okay, so I said every time I want to hurt myself, there was no therapy, no psychology, nothing helped. No models, nada. Then I said, I will write to this person every time I feel bad. And I told him, I write to you because I don't want to take it out on another man. Then I try to communicate with people, have good social experiences with people that I learned. There wasn't any because of these weird cults. Okay? So then I would go to basically being completely isolated from society, but then I got a chance to study. Then I go and I study, and of course I'm pretty isolated, except this one person that sits next to me, and they're from one of the wealth families that are also in the political area and so on, but for me that was just like, that was my bestie. Okay? Then I go first degree, second degree. My second degree, I'm already in a different position socially, and what happened to me during the pre-Me Too era, so I begin to learn about narcissistic abuse. Now before that, what saved the day was a veteran that was connected to my poems, and I began to speak with veterans and learn that they told me, if I feel guilty about what I had to do, or if I think that shouldn't have been happening, then I will feel, I would get a trauma. But the other thing is that to change, okay, for the circumstances that caused the trauma, is to recover. Okay, not to take it out on another person. Okay, but to change for the circumstances. Now, because I didn't know that what happened to me was something that shouldn't have happened to me, but it was not because of me, but because there was this cult thingy that was infiltrating that musician, very talented musician, by the way, but it was infiltrating him back in 2006, 2007. And I did not know, so I looked to heal myself in places where I should have been trying to be with people to change society. So when I said the word soul rape, I was basically exposing the MK Ultra. And then I was targeted harshly. And really over nothing. And when I noticed that the women that were actually raped, that they told me, but the things that is like what you've been through, that was the hardest for me to recover. okay, which is incredibly scary. Like I wouldn't want to okay, I'm not in favor of, comparing traumas, but also they were accepting of me. The women that actually went through it, they were accepting of me. It's the women that were with the MK Ultra. They're like, do you know what being raped is? This was not the women that were actually dealing with that. Mostly, okay, maybe sometimes, but mostly, it was not the women that are actually dealing with that. The women that are actually dealing with that, they were like, yes, I went through something like what you went through. And that happened when I began to talk about the cult. So there was a cult survivor that didn't understand that what she come out to is another cult, and that happens in the academia and so on. And it was like, do you know what the cult? But like, calm down. I'm talking about something that is a cult and that is a cult. And yes, they were doing medical experiments. Put somebody in psych ward, not to recover, but to be drugged up so that they wouldn't be able to speak, so that their muscles won't contract. That's a cult. You went through that more intensely, absolutely, but the essence of the experience is cult. So these people that you come out to thinking that they're going to help you, they're actually another cult. Okay, and that was my bestie back, not my Me Too bestie. She got to know me through the meters. Called me. She's like, "What you've been through is exactly like what I've been through," and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Because she was like, "It was a sex cult, okay? It was a sex cult in the academia, and the ladies were competing over the attention of that person and so on." And she was like, she was not into that. It was just fun. She just found it funny, and had her life threatened for 3 years from hidden calls in WhatsApp. And I was like, I was not connecting that to my experience, okay? Because I was like, okay, there was this cult-like experience with this person, but I was not experiencing that. And then she was like, no, darling, that's exactly what's up. This is a freaking cult. And I'm like, damn, I guess there's something to what she's saying, because she went through the harshest experience of what I thought. And then I would begin to talk about, like, with the Masons, because she came from a family that was deep within the Masons, very likely. And everybody goes, so why do you not want to litigate? Why do you not want to litigate? If the Supreme Court, and I did not know about the mink back then, but if the Supreme Court works in such a way, does not benefit to, and the offense with the procedure of justice is incompatible with recovering from sexual trauma for both men and women. And there was a movement to change, okay, for the juristic system, which we now see in France. And all these other things that really need to change in favor of all of us, the boys, the girls, everyone. But the thing is, like, why don't you litigate? Why don't you litigate? Like, hey, why would I litigate? That would just get me into the same people that are tied in with that person in the same cult. Okay, if you have, and then when I learned about them, like, if you have to snuff children, that's what I told to Ronnie Sadovnikoloni, okay, if it's like you have to, if a Supreme Court judge has to do filmography, okay, to stay in his job, and he's also intelligence job, then how can we expect the justice on the simple case? We have to tend to these children, because otherwise, what would be? Then Tom, Dick, and Harry, or Jane and Mary would get their narcissistic case solved. They would live fine, but there would be a whole line of people that is just paying the price for their freedom. That's the kidnapped children. Okay. So you get to the top of the pyramid and you see what that is. And then you get the justitie, okay, justitie, that is with the inverted scales symbolism, that you have to rely on to defend you from political assassination if you're a politician. And so those things came about, and I became more and more prominent because I actually contributed to the society. So more and more people know. And then they try, of course, to defame you, to cancel you, and so on. But you don't know about it always. And I was like, cancelled, write the post, see it on the founder of X. That's very weird. Okay? or read it, and then you read another person that this, in Peterson is writing a book with his father back then, and then the book is categorized as number one top sales in Netherlands. It's categorized as self-help, and it's a book about a story between the relation of a father and a son. Okay, the entire family canceled. It's not they're more or less corrupt than any other family, but it's like there's a changing going on here. And you see those things happen, okay? People try to make sure you're never going to get the stage to say what you said in 2017. I don't know where Royce was in 2017. I know where Peter was. I know where Geert was. But it's like wherever you were in 2017, I was 2024. It's like they try to make whatever that nobody will listen to what you have to say in 2017. Well, now you're speaking with the new wealth, okay, with the people now being heard. Okay, so I did not know who Jaguar Wright is in 2017, or who Royce de Vries was, or Peter de Vries was for that record. Okay, but kind of like now these names know each other. Okay, and so you're kind of like you're going from being tremendously isolated to making an actual contribution to then being canceled, okay, to then very hopefully making another like giant contribution. Even with the astrology, there was a thing where like some of my lives were not, some shadow band was removed, okay, perhaps because they thought they managed to recruit me somewhere they didn't, and so I would have my colleagues in the astrology was like, hey, we're being canceled. And then at first I thought, well, only the fluffy astrology channels to get the attention. I was like, I'm not a fluffy astrologer, I just prefer the lives. So I began to do more lives. But the thing is that like, no, I was back to being marginalized again. And you see it was kind of like how the AI taking over and the MK taking over and all these things. But now it's going to be, it's not going to be the underdog that they said it will be the underdog. It will be the underdog thingy, okay? And there is a difference between a lot of people that they say they are the underdog are not actually the underdog, and then with the things that are genuinely the underdog now begin to we're going to have a little bit of a bifurcation, okay? Some of them is going to be the made-up underdog that they put in to sort of show you a different frame, and some of that is going to genuinely be something that that we haven't been tending to, that's standing outside of the frame, which is why I said don't be afraid to fall outside of the frame. On my Instagram, you might end up looking better than you thought, because I know the frames that I wasn't in, that I could have been in, okay? A frame of bachelors from Ben Gurion University Department of Politics and Governance that I wasn't in. Okay, for the bachelor's. Okay, for the first degree, yes. Second degree, no. Okay, so that's something that works in my favor. You're gonna find out when Pluto increases. I got a feeling that we all gotta find out. Frames that I wasn't in, certain groups. Okay, I had a colleague that did a group of like conversation with men and women and so on. She was very, very supportive and so on. But I noticed when it came to the Me Too issues, like they went too far. And I'm like, no, darling. Most men currently are in this position. Maybe it needs to change, but most men currently are not aligned with will and consent. Whether it's because they don't know, whether it's because of this, whether it's because of that, it's not aligned with will and consent. And then one of the people that were in her, and I was supposed to be on that course. Okay, she had a course from entire series. She produced something giant, and one of these people, that was a person who raped very likely 100 hundreds of women. Okay, like I wasn't on that frame. I was supposed to be one of the people for that course. Okay? I fell out of the frame. It was very lucky for me. Okay. More frames I wasn't into, astrological community. there's a lot of places you wouldn't see me in the astrological community. They were just like, I thought, oh, okay, well, I don't go to Norway or this or that. You know, I'm not Mason. Okay, so I fell out of the frame. You won't see me on an episode of the main podcast of astrology, and so on. And I fell out of the frame, but you know, I might end up looking better than I thought. Um, Unless we actually tend to the things that were intended to MK Ultra, the expandable children, okay, with his Epstein rings or whatnot. Masons, the curses in Mason, the curses in Mason, the curses in Mason, the fertility curses in Mason, the fertility curses in Mason, the compliance with the COVID, the compliance, okay, all these things. Just like, hey, I fell out of that frame. But there was definitely a giant wealth that I didn't make, but hey, the change in currency, so taking a loan to invest in real estate didn't fall into that category. When it comes to the lasers, yeah, that's a different thing. Being an influencer in favor of psychiatric pills, that's why very likely that's why they funded my degree. But I was like, that shit don't work. And open dialogue and how's it first works better. Believe in the patient. I was like, I mean, of course, if I went to study like linguistics and I was so curious about the mistakes that people make when they cross languages, then when you think about psychosis or psychotic, it was like, oh, what's the thing that they see? What's the patterns? What is this? What is that? I was like, okay, they're just telling the truth. On the one hand, it's kind of boring, but on the other hand, it's kind of like, hey, they're not imagining. Sometimes the truth is simple. If they say, oh, the Mossad is surveilling me, it's like, yeah, it's surveilling every other person. I mean, I was in Model UN, there was a Argentinian, a Colombian girl with us, and she was an author. She was like, by us, you feel the conversation. When I speak with my mom, she's an author, so you get them doing all these weird rituals. It's kind of like, hey, you're living in a surveillance state. What can I do? And you go to Model UN, you see everybody knew United States. If you were representative of United States in any Model UN, at least that I was in, that everybody, you knew you don't have the card where it comes to surveillance, because United States was known to be number one surveillance in the entire world, including China, including Russia, including everyone. Case of the X. Okay? So when a person telling you the Mossad is following my calls and trying to make me do stuff, is like, yes, that they do that. Maybe it's the CIA, but that's just a minor detail. And you drag them up with all kinds of pyramidal or extra pyramidal, and then shots, and then this, and then that. Well, that person comes out to COVID, they're gonna know what's up. And really, sometimes people told me things that were like, this seems so far out there. I was like, yeah, they're planning to cancel sexual polarity and make androgynous person and this and that. And I'm like, okay, what's wrong with LGBTQ? Like, what's the problem? And I'm like, when I would see what the medical institution does, where you cannot have an identity without having a surgery, that's a problem. But the antidote is not there are two genders, but actually being inclusive independently of the medical system. So, yeah, you just run into so many things, and then your goals and dreams transform. That I took a break from academia. I definitely fell out of it. Like when when Ivy League said that there were nobody killed in Dresden's bombings that was German, I'm so glad I'm not in that frame. I'm not in that picture. so, so you can get all your FOMO. And hear me out on this, okay? Stay true to your values. Like, we can reform our values when we see a good reason to, okay? For example, I had nothing for or against like sex work. I was like, I don't know why would people do that. They would do that. That's sexual oppression. That's their issue. And I'm like, yeah, I have another type of sexuality, I guess. I was like, that's okay. But then I see this all sex espionage and people are raped and trafficked to do that. And then they're mind control and red umbrella is Rothschild. That's the red, right? Look. Then I'm like, okay, that's not really what the red light districts too. Yes. Oh shit. I didn't know that. Okay, so I can reform my values if I see good information that is telling me that, hey, that ideation that you had about whatever these people do there, that is just like, well, it's a part of the culture. You go to show someone Amsterdam, it's like, that's a part of what's in Amsterdam. And it's so integral. Like during COVID, like there were less red lights in the red lights district. Okay, it's just like such an integral part of society that you just think, okay, from other cultures, they're just like don't have this open perception around sexuality and so on. But then you get gay people in Netherlands fearing to be gay or fearing to tell that they're gay, and I'm like, this is Netherlands. Oh, okay. And I'm like, why? Or people being non-monogamous and having problems because they're non-monogamous. I'm not talking about sleeping with minors. I'm talking about like just having more lovers. And I'm like, but there's Netherlands. I wouldn't think that. But then, when you see certain things, you can like reform your values. But you gotta have a good reason to that. Other than that, stick to your values, and you'll see you fall out of the frames that are irrelevant to you, that you may have been ideating or not just not knowing too much about. But then you're gonna find yourself in the frames that are actually good for you. Okay. And so the way that people are being framed and so on. As a Me Too veteran, for example, I didn't think about like what problems can people do to say about the person something that they didn't do and stuff like that. Because as far as I was concerned, I was like, yeah, fuck it. But then it was like turning to my situation, and then I would work, I don't know, with Fomal and then I would say things, and I would come to talk about myself and my life and so on, and I say like, hey, there's something going on here that could have affected my housing, my income, my this, my that, that has to do with that framing that is not actually true. Okay, so the solution I see is not like defamation, but actually tended to it on a structural level. Like on a structural level, we're not going to be able to do that to people. I think is more important than defamation, because, for example, we talk about sexual boundary violation, then the recovery is like housing first, to grow crops, to travel, to live a good life, okay, so being safe and to be believed. Then I'm the last one who would block somebody's speech or try to cancel someone, or like, and it can sometimes be innocent. Okay, sometimes it's because like, maybe, I don't know, you left someone and then they need to vent to someone, or they see things in a certain way, or it's like, hey, my mother used to say that I am what, ekfuyatova. How do you translate that? It's like selfish or not appreciative of her, which was not at all my feeling. Okay, it's like I was very appreciative of her, but I also had to have like my own sovereignty. And then she would rant about it. Like she would rant about it. People I don't know. She would just go with it. It's not intentional. It doesn't mean to do anything harm to her daughter. But some people can take her more seriously than she meant that, and try to act against me. Okay. All the while, I was spending the amount of money that could amount to a house just to get therapy, to see how can I get better connection with my mom. ended up that money being spent to a person that was in Scientology and another person that's MK Ultra decides which children to kidnap. Okay? And when I was buying crystals for healing, okay, maybe people thought I was a gold digger. No, I was just trying to get to heal myself, okay? And so what happens is that, like, I never felt like, in essence, I don't think we have too much control over our image. I have Neptune next to my midheaven and so on. So, like, you can't control what people think about you or how people frame you or how people see you, and so on. And sometimes you just tend to a problem that you have. Okay, for example, somebody was flirting with me and he had a girlfriend. And then he wasn't showing, like, his Facebook page was not open to me. And I was like, why are you flirting with him? What do you want? And then he was thinking that I heard rumors about him because he was running this pub and so on, or maybe it was intelligence and so on. And he had a very beautiful girlfriend, okay? And I was like, no, I was not trying, like, you just acted weird. And I needed to understand what's going on. And that wouldn't let go until I kind of exposed that dumbfuckery to him and his girlfriend. They didn't separate as far as I know. But it was like, after I did that, I was sick, and then I did it and I was not sick. I still don't understand what happened. But that was kind of a weird thing. It's like the person can think, like, I heard rumors about you. I was like, no, that was just your behavior, Don. You present yourself as single in dating profiles, and then you flirt with me on the low, and I'm like, I have no idea what that is supposed to mean, but your spousey is going to know about this. And she did. Okay? And then I stopped being sick. Like, forgot about him totally. That was the story. Okay, it actually has such a story. Like, that was the story. And I still don't know what happened. Why was he doing that? I have no idea. I don't know. So sometimes it's like, yeah, you think it's coming from rumors, from this, from that. And sometimes it's like, hey, people just don't like the way for your behavior. Okay, and that's okay. That's okay too. We all got something to fix on that, I guess. So that's another thing that's to do with, like, a public house or having, like, an 11th house Pluto. But I remember that I began to work on, like, my visibility and try to get. I used to have great lighting in the two apartments that I lived. I lived one apartment, then the other unit. And here where I stay, the lighting is not good enough. Okay, so I'm trying to get a good picture of myself. It's like, I'm not the person to wear too much makeup either way, and I always like natural light, and so that was not looking very well. So I guess I began to try and work on that and see where I get maybe a better frame or better makeup or stuff like that, so that I can look more representative. And then one of my colleagues on Twitter, X exit, was saying, well, maybe we shouldn't. No, the feed with Elon with the bathing suit. It was, yeah. They're feeding Elon in bathing suit pictures to the AI, so it will work on that instead of on artists. I don't know. But anyway, she was saying maybe we shouldn't post our pictures online right now because we don't want that to be worked out and so on. And I'm like, there's me trying to think, what am I doing wrong with my visibility? And then there's like, then there's that issue. So maybe I shouldn't be looking that great on YouTube. Although people are gonna want to see the face of someone, and that is also true. But I guess sometimes it's like you fall out of the frame, but you end up looking better than you thought. So that happened to me as well. Okay, that the kind of being there when you need to be there and get the fuck out of there when you need to get the fuck out of there, is a wisdom. But it wasn't coming from wisdom, coming from, like, I was isolated, or I was canceled, or someone betrayed me, or there was an argument that I couldn't with anymore with that, or just weird things that happen. Just to go to the extreme of, like, being extremely visible. It's like invisible and powerless, visible and powerful, invisible and powerful. Okay? But also visible and powerless. Okay, it's like those those type of things that I dealt with that Pluto going on my 11th. And then it was always the question, if you think about the business, to try to adapt to the algorithm. And I'm like, well, I don't want to adapt it. Like, the reason I'm unemployed is because I don't adapt to these frames and structures. So I don't want to adapt my content to I do me. Okay? So when it came to manifestations, there was like, hey, what's not, like, I thought, I hacked the system. But then I see something takes longer to manifest, some slower. Then I see astrology. So I naturally move with that. And then, my astrology gets to that, diverted to that place or to that place. And then I become more and more relevant, but less and less visible. And then I say something that responds to that. Sometimes there are misunderstandings. I remember when I was saying something nice to Mark Bayersky, and he got it like on the offside, and I was like, oh my god, no, so much didn't mean it as a hater. And I really hope that the next time I mention it in your videos, like, is in better circumstances. But that was like a big misunderstanding. And now if I compare that to like, like, okay. So like that. It's a very strange experience, because you think like, that can't be, that just happened. Okay. So I don't know. I think it's both the fact that people that were behind, many people that that manage their content began to manage their own content, and then there began to be like certain interactions. Okay. So I think it's lovely, because kind of like if it was 11th house, you're like at the bottom of the pyramid in whichever house it was, then at the top of the pyramid. And at the bottom of the pyramid and top of the pyramid kind of meet, and then there's this decentralized system we're going to see in Aquarius. If I think about Saturn in Aquarius, for me, it was the first time I spent a week at a hospital in a place where it's closed, okay, because they didn't have a place for the open people. And I was targeted, but I didn't know to call it that way, so I thought maybe this is psychosis. Okay, because like, hey, nothing helped. And then I was in that place in a week, and then they vomited me out. Because I began to do martial arts and stuff. I still have no idea, but I saw someone who knew my father, and there's something to do with the blood, okay, because they take your blood. And then I guess they tried to recruit me, because I was doing channeling experiment, but I was like, I literally could not move anywhere. I had to adapt to like this weird system. Then I would go homeless. So that was like running into like those very weird situations. And then it was like the time where they tried olanzapine again, and that nearly killed me. And I went to a hospital. It was actually registered, and said maybe it's from the pill, but I needed injection of water, and I don't know what else did they put there. And I had to recover from myself using only channeling. That's it, nothing more. And there were no witnesses because I was alone. And that was that. Okay, usually I was like, okay, I'll take that for a while, then I drop it off. And I had to recover from that dumbfuckery. And I already knew back then that open dialogue is the way, but I didn't know about housing first, and that was what I was about to learn. Being homeless. But if I think about 2008, I was going from the top of the pyramid to the bottom of the pyramid, to the inverted pyramid, because I was operating according to Viktor Frankl approach, which is like you have to have a meaning to life. And then for like the meaning to life matters first, and then like the food, the that is like you can't live without, a meaning to life. And then I was going back into matter. And now I'm actually tending to my feet and to the soil and building structures in the soil. So that was a journey. And then I would spend time like in people's houses, and these were people that knew me, and would do kind of like my own magic there. And then there was no solution for homelessness in Israel, so I went to Netherlands. It was all channeling, okay, this channeling experiment. I was exposed to a lot of things that I didn't even understand. I'm only beginning to understand. So, and it was essentially people who knew me from social media that were helping, and also like Swiss cheese solutions, because housing was needed. And then when I tended to housing, I began to tend to housing. I began to go, before this, what happened with my macro, I began to, with the real estate, I began to go when I would meet the people that were like, you know, in hostels and stuff. And I was like, these people could be living alone, okay? For most of them, they could clean their house and cook better than me, okay? Like, frankly, squarely and honestly, my mother helps me with cooking and cleaning. Squarely and honestly. I do these weird things in the soil. I can barely put on makeup, okay? I can analyze to you what's wrong in the curses of the masonry around fertility and stuff like that. When it comes to like the daily routine and stuff, like I needed help for that, okay? And so what happened was that I would turn to like these people and was like, hey, you need to look for an apartment, you can go to a makler, you have your rights, you deserve this much of a sum of amount in order to you to be able to live in a house privately, and so on and so forth. And then what happened with the real estate was what you probably know if you watch my channel, that I had to tend to, because that was like the next level. Because so these people can go out of the hostels. We can't have this sex industry around private estates. And I was not asking for payment from government, because I was like on the path to like remove the band-aid, and so that I would be not reliant on this from the government, learning to build my own wealth. And then I ran into this big MK Ultra giant thingy, and how that affects the real estate and everything around that, because I was like, hey, I'm not staying in that oppressive system, and also I want to grow, okay? So but I was kind of like trying to facilitate for people to get out of hostels. They were confiscated, the property was confiscated, and they were put in these hostels, and try to help them like out. And then I would see like, okay, if this is these estates where they go out, when they go out, then we must tend to that problem in the real estate. We can't have the espionage in the real estate, because that is where people recover from, you know, from whether it's hostel or whatever they were put in, so that they can live alone and live a good life, rather than be with the pyramidal and extra-pyramidal, just basically political assassination towards these targeted individuals. And so then what happened with the real estate, and then we began to work with the half moons, and people try to constrict it to the city. So it's like I'm giving talismans to the prostitutes and feeding the homeless. Not exactly what they planned for me to do in the city. And some people even know that. I honestly believe that the people who try to turn my real estate agent against me, using whatever, you know, maybe they got him on drugs and got him to masturbate on something, they filmographed in my house or something. But the thing is, with the people that did that, they already knew how I operate. They already knew I'm going to get to them. So this is why I'm being like I'm not like wiping him off the planet, because they just want to get over, they just want to rule where he was. And I told them, you have 100 estates. For these people that try to buy this city, 100 estates is nothing. I wasn't trying to demote him. I was just like, hey, get real. There are people with way more wealth trying to get at that city. If you let this happen to your city with 100 estates that you got, they're not going to keep you alive. And I said that, okay, and it's true. But instead of dealing with that, he was just trying to get for the money, for the 2,000 shekels of, it's like less than 500 euros. Okay, if it's like around $500 that he was trying to get. It's like holding on to this $500, like, like a dying homeless. Like, I'm like, I don't get what's going on there. Where anyway, if that apartment's like, if I leave this place and that apartment sits empty, you're not gonna get money. Okay, there's nobody's. It's not like 1 month that you still have to go in the in between, so it's empty. It's not like somebody's vying for this apartment, people waiting for this apartment or something like that. And if the reason that you throw me out is with doing that sexpionage dumbfuckery, because I wasn't doing that, so it's probably you were doing that. That would happen to every tenant. So first of all, I'm not gonna leave that estate that way. And secondly, who would be like what tenants? Okay, how would they pay you? So now the entire dumbfucker is exposed. All the while, the way I would go about it, it's like if I'm on the property, I deepen the value of the soil. It's like, hey, on this soil, we have good relation between men and women, good relation in families. It's okay for solitary people. It's okay for families. It's like to make sure that for this estate, I'll just going to put more value into this estate on a spiritual level. And so to leave the place better than how I got it even. And it might not see, okay, the place might be dirty as fuck, okay? But when it comes to the energy, to the blessings, to the things, to the place of like, hey, I lived here for 2.5 years. I'm not leaving this estate worse. And I'm not leaving this estate to be taken over by, something that is ruining of itself, but rather transforming that. And so, if I need to do it in the city, I do it in the city. My steps are not going to get smaller; they're going to get bigger and more expansive. Okay, same as when I didn't have. Okay, when I left my apartment. Okay, before when Saturn was going into my 12th, and I left that apartment. I was like, okay, I'm very likely I need another room to be receiving people if I would be doing aromatherapy and stuff, or even astrological readings. So there's another room where I can host people because I'm growing, and that's it. That's it for me. I wasn't thinking very much farther because we were living in a building. And by the way, I've been there yesterday. Wonderful. They made wonderful garden and so on. I was like, you could have a garden, and for me it was like step on the soil, grow some crops or grow something. Okay, I wasn't thinking much. And mind you, I'm half Dutch, so in Netherlands we have like a mattress worth of a garden. Then you grow your crops in it, and you have a garden. It looks amazing, and the house is very small, and you take care of the house. Okay, so I wasn't coming from, and even the richest of the richest, North Amsterdam. So they have a BMW parking, and it's the same small house, and you have a small boat, and you travel with that small boat. That's it. That's the wealth. That's what it amounts to. Okay, that's the wealth. That you got a good life in North Amsterdam. That's it. So you got some bigger houses in Friesland and in down south, but really that's what it's amount to. And it's a good life because essentially you want to live a good life. Your family is important, your connection is important, to read a good book, the experiential part of life. It's not just chasing, something that, whatnot. But I went through, and I was traveling to Netherlands, and there was a ton of information about business and real estate. And manifesting, it was like I was not allowed to strive for anything but the best. Literally, because when I have ruler of my 4th and 7th in Aries, it's kind of like it's the number one, it's the best, And even when I came to live in this estate, okay, so the makler told me, you need to live in the best place, the number one place. And he gave me to live in his house. Okay, so before that, Damfucker went, and I say that too. Okay, because there's something going on there. So, just something going on, going from like, you're gonna live in the best place in this house to whatever happened there. So there's something going on, right? That person was diverted in some way, was mind controlled in some way, was drugged up, but it's tortured. I have no idea. Yes, but you can't be stalking me like that, right? That hurts that hurts the safety in the city. That hurts the real estate in the city. So, which I did tend to with other maklers. So, you're not going to turn to the police. I mean, the police was the police. It's the police. It's not allowed to work. It's not allowed to do something in favor of the people. So you turn to who's got the interest, right? And then with that Saturn in my 12th, so I was in Israel, I was in Amsterdam, and I was seeing places and so on. But and then eventually I would live in literally like the best place in the growing city. And I was being ushered into that. Even with the place I previously lived in, it was the closest to the university for student life. It was 1 second from the university, central place, not too many people that bug you about anything. So there was something, I guess, very central and very innovative. There will always be something new that I'm doing wherever I live, and learning about that. So I guess that's now, I guess, being expanded, because Uranus is going to go into my 4th and Pluto into my 12th, and it goes all the way down to Masonry. So, but the fact is that I wasn't looking to become like a real estate savvy. I was just like looking to live someplace and retire. Honestly, I have around my 4th house. You just think about what you just want to retire. Okay, even when I think about business or work or something or teaching, there's things I love doing, but I think in the mindset of a retired person. It's like if I want to have a good retirement, I want to think in the mindset of a retired person. What would a retired person need? What would a retired person do? This was why I love the 4-hour work week. Okay. And it's not about not wanting to work or something like that. It's like when you're retired, you still have to do things that are actually, when you're retired, is even more important to you to do meaningful stuff that you enjoy, because otherwise you lose quality of life and you lose income. So sometimes that's where your real legacy is going to be. I think about Feynman, the award that he won. He had the inversion, not the inversion, but the opposite side of me, because he had the Virgo ascendant, and then he had the Sagittarius, which Ra in Sagittarius, Ra in the 4th, and the most things he played out with just for the sake of it, just for fun. Then he got awards for it, okay, for his sciences. And he began to like being kind of like not elementary teacher, but teaching the basics of physics to like the people. But I have a Gemini, okay, so it's different. It's kind of same but different. And he was such a good whistleblower. Like, he whistleblew on so many things of the cult that I just like, wow. He had a lot of titles: bongo player, mathematician, physician. Was like just like one of the greatest whistleblowers out there that I know of. So that's the inspiration. Yeah, more about this giant mountain of Pluto in Capricorn. There are a lot of things that are like, now you are the person that you were looking up to. And whoever Capricorn is in your house, okay, because Capricorn is a lot about that giant mountain. If you look at the giant mountain, it's like, I'm never gonna reach the top, but let's take another step. That's not gonna happen. Let's take another step. Oh, you see what I told you? Now I have to take 4 steps down. Now what I gotta do? Let's take another step. Okay. And that's, you climb that mountain, whichever mountain it is in your life. And sometimes it can be, with me having Neptune there, it's kind of like, I don't even know what mountain. I was doing the half moons, and then I see in Netherlands there was a ship called Half Moon, Halfmond, something like that, and that was a colonial ship. I had no idea. I just think about reforestation. So some things you're really fated to do. Because when I was in academia, then I was looking at the trees and I was painting trees and I was like, trees and lungs and so on. And I had a fascination with the trees. And then when I worked with, when I got my first, Thema Mundi by the Sphere and Sundry, then all I was seeing was trees. The world was going crazy and all I was seeing was trees, their shape, their presence. Was seeing was trees. And then I had my ex-bestie, he was studying physics. And then he moved from there to geography and then he was studying forestation. So I learned a lot about trees, right? And forests, what grows them, what this, what that, what diminishes them. Then I look at the Sahara thingy that's they're being reforesting. I'm like, they're reforesting. I said, I must try that in the Negev. And I was literally moving mountains. There's something, it's giant wealth, okay? It's giant wealth. And it's not a wealth I can describe to you in, like, I own this, and I own that, and I own that, and I own that. No. It's giant wealth of moving energy around and exploring life this way. And not getting into a lot of frames where I could get, let's say the currency change, okay? So there's this giant wealth that I can't even begin to describe to you because it's experiential. And I think when people live life, that's what they remember from the living. And I learned the wealth that is experiential as well. So yeah, tomorrow Pluto ingresses into Aquarius, which is my 12th house. I got a lot about you will have a mission in another land, or there would be going somewhere else and so on. And I just let life evolve. And see what happens. Pluto will be beginning to go through a square with Venus for me. So there will be a lot of plots of land where this tend to be, I guess, a place where they would put sex workers for me to do the half moons in instead of what was done there before. And when I think about Pluto in Capricorn, that was what I did, right? And so, if you think about something going from your 12th, which is hidden wealth, but also jail, hospital, exile, bedroom, and stuff like that, and Venus in the third, which is the garden, the bathroom, and so on. So that's a lot of half moons in a lot of gardens where they thought to place the sex workers, and a lot of talismans to a lot of sex workers to get the fuck out of there. So and that's applying, okay, for what I did, what I learned, and sharing that teaching with you, because the more you do that, it's best for your estate, very simply put. If you ain't got the half moon, create it. It's best for your crops. You're going to be eating from your garden. It's going to be very necessary when they decide on the cities, because everybody's going to have claustrophobia and agoraphobia. There's fear of closed places, fear of many crowds. That literally is a side effect. It's the disease reminds you what is missing. I'm going to say it again. The disease reminds you what is missing. You won't be able to live in these jailhouse cities. It's gonna 9/11 on human trade, but big time this time. So it's gonna be a lot of gardens and a lot of forests and a lot of people recovering from sexpionage. And a lot of talismans to a lot of refugees, to a lot of homeless, to a lot of sex workers. And a lot of sphere and sundry. With a good fertility and willing consent. Rest my case.